VisioTech, where AI becomes equitable through accessibility and cybersecurity. Welcome to Systems and Technology Intelligence Lab's STIL 26 Basecamp, powered by the Watson Institute and the Truist Foundation.
Welcome, everybody. This is the STIL 26 Basecamp, powered by the Watson Institute, as well as Truist Foundation, two incredible organizations. What we're doing right now is we are educating, engaging, and empowering. One of the purposes of VisioTech is to make sure that emerging technologies and systems are more equitable, and we're doing that through accessibility and cybersecurity. This is actually the second of three sessions that we're doing. Last week we did our Ally Shield, and where we focused on accessibility and cybersecurity. And today, CIA, Civic Innovation and Accessibility, we'll be focusing on accessible AI within our cities, primarily focused on smart cities, as you know, we are rapidly advancing. And so I'm going to pass it on to our incredible hostess with the mostest, Candice Sullivan.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Tiffany Martin. Such a pleasure to be here. I will do you justice, though. I won't do you wrong. So again, welcome everyone here. If you guys have an opportunity, definitely put in the chat. Let us know where you're from and essentially what you're most excited to hear about. So we definitely want to know about those things. But first and foremost, if you guys want to visualize my aesthetic, because your girl's working it today, I am a caramel complected melanated queen. Yes, I am. And I have a slightly been kissed by the sun. On my good side, on my good days. Got some barrel curls going on, and I got a cute little royal purple. I'm talking about your girl is giving it to the people. But essentially, I definitely want to let you guys know a little bit about myself just before I start on, because I'll be your host of today's conversation. I am serving currently in my career path as a customer success manager at Salesforce. I've been in the ecosystem for about a decade. Doesn't feel that way, and I don't look that way, but it's fine. But essentially, my role has been a part of the administration as a consultant, working in the marketing operations sector, and also nonprofit, where I'm definitely passionate about. But few career highlights for me is just a strong background in just technology and business analytics as well, and project management implementation. So I have a strong passion about learning about things regarding AI and just cultivating concepts around that. But enough about me. I actually want to introduce two extraordinary women of the hour, so therefore we can kind of get this conversation rolling. But first, I'm going to start off and say that today I have the privilege of introducing Kate Carter, who is the AI program manager for the City of Tucson, Arizona, one of my favorite places. Got to do a little clap for that, where she does lead efforts to responsibility for evacuate, implement AI or artificial intelligence across the city departments. So she also is the chair of the City Advanced Technology Committee and is currently pursuing a PhD focused on AI in healthcare. You go, girl, make it work for you. Just want to say thank you for that one. I'll definitely give her a chance to give some rebuttals or speaking after that one. I also have the esteemed privilege and honor to introduce Mayor L. Proctor, who is uh, just helping our community and serving for the 22nd mayor of DeSoto, Texas. She was first elected in 2021 and during the pandemic, which is the hardest time above and beyond, and during the Winter Storm Uri, reelected in 2025 with a decisive majority. She leads a focus on community impacts and excessive growth. So a proud DeSoto native, entrepreneur, owner of the Neighborhood Christian Learning Center of Dallas. She is also the founder of Emerge Leadership Inc., where it does provide scholarships and leadership opportunities for young women. So, a two-time published author and recognized civic leader, Mayor Proctor brings together public service, business leadership, and community advocacy to advance the inclusive and forward-thinking innovations for all residents. Girl, that's letting you know your resume is extensive and it keeps on going. I appreciate that above and beyond. Ladies, I appreciate you guys for being here today. Didn't know if you have any particular remarks or anything you want to talk about before we get started.
That was just a great intro. I'm really excited for this
I know.
conversation.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Thank you all for the invitation. Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. Appreciate you for
Great.
asking. So, ladies, just for today's conversation, I say we're going to have a chat. This is more so girl talk, but inclusiveness, those people talk. Got to do that. But more so as we kind of discuss the civic innovation and accessibility, there's just a couple things I want to dive into. But Kate, I think I'm going to start with you because I feel like there's some great questions and features that I myself am just curious about regarding AI. I do want to know more so from your perspective, what does it take for a operationalized responsibility for AI so that it remains in both accessible and suitable over a course of time?
So that's my personal opinion, but as well as kind of how we're operationalizing here at the City of Tucson. I think it's really important to have strong governance because this technology is not static. As soon as we acquire it, it is very dynamic. The risk posture today will be different in 6 months. And so how do
Mm,
we take that into account? I think it also comes with, since I chair the Advanced Technology Committee, kind of asking those accessibility questions up front. Like we're thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion before this proof of concept or pilot is even deployed. So it's having diverse stakeholders in that meeting to ask those questions. But then I also think about, so the city, we're part of the AARP when we create a aging plan. And I think about what that means because a lot of people come here to retire, right? We're
mm.
flat, we have nice weather. So what does it mean to age? And as we age, we our mobility changes, our hearing, our vision, and all of those things. So I think about technology and how it will be implemented and deployed throughout the city for all of these communities. And I'm excited to have a seat at this table, to be raising those questions, and to make sure that we're looking through all of those lenses.
That's actually a great perspective. I never really thought about it from that concept, especially the retirement aspect and then kind of correlating to AI. So, even with that being said, what are probably the early signals that a system is working well for all residents and not just the majority?
Usually that comes to friction. Like if we don't hear those complaints, then maybe we're doing all right. But then you have to realize that not everybody is going to go that extra step and call and make a complaint or
Mm.
file a complaint or even know where to do that. So it's part of checking in with the communities, seeing how things are working and what's not working. And that literally goes from everything because we have AI in our traffic lights to help with traffic. It's being deployed in very different areas throughout the community. But it's checking in and getting that survey response as well as responding to those that are submitting their frustrations and making sure. And then third, I if we have employees that are creating workarounds, so we deploy something, we think it's going to be wonderful, we're so excited about it, but the reality is, oh, now our employees have to take 3 extra steps to get the thing done because it's not meeting our needs. That's also checking in and looking at the friction. So not just externally, but also internally.
Yeah. And one
Like,
thing I want to
go
add,
ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, no, you're going. Go ahead.
No, one thing I want to add that I really appreciated about Kate and her team over with the city of Tucson is they invited me to come speak last year. And just to give my personal experience, with orientation and mobility, what that looks like, even my experience in navigating online spaces. And the entire staff was there and they were doing the training on AI. And I thought that was so pioneering, just trailblazing, if you will, that you would bring in somebody with a disability to talk as you are training your team and staff on AI from the beginning. That was what we referred to last week with Dr. Martin about working left and starting at the beginning and then working your way to the right into completion. So that was one instance where I really appreciated their team for just inviting me in for that conversation.
I appreciate you showing up. Because there's no way I see the world through my lens, right? And there's no way that I can account for all of the things and needs of every individual. Prior to joining the city, I worked with kiddos with special needs, and they taught me so much.
Mm.
And so when I'm going into buildings and I'm looking at what the ramps look like and are there bars and how are the curb cutouts? I would never have paid attention if I wasn't exposed to like these amazing humans. And so it takes people being in the room like Tiffany to say like, hey, also think about this, so that it gets baked into the whole entire process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You actually brought up about a question that kind of traces into this next question. I'm just wondering, When your city begins implementing new technology such as AI, right? When do you most often see the gap between the intention and what actually gets delivered to the public?
I think this is such a great question, and I don't know if we're even seeing it yet, to be honest
Mm,
with you, right? Like we're still at such early phases of the really push and the expansion. Why cities want to adopt, there's definitely the need because we're short on funding, we're short on humans, we're under a lot of pressure. And when I'm speaking with vendors, I'm asking, of course, I need it to be ADA and all of these questions, but the real gap, I don't even think we're seeing it yet. And if I'm just being 100% transparent, as many of the questions that we ask, and I have all of the stakeholders at the room, like we're going to fall short. Like I am planning to fall short because it's just the reality. So that it keep me on my toes. Like, guys, we're gonna do the best that we absolutely can, knowing that we might fall short. And then how are we gonna address this when we do fall short? Like, how are we gonna show up for our community and meet their needs? When we started at one point and now we realize we need to pivot. And so I think it's being able to be flexible and realize that no matter how perfect we want to get this, we might fall short. And then how are we gonna adapt when push comes to shove?
Mhm.
that's an awesome perspective. Now, Tiffany, you have anything you want to add or follow up with?
No, I agree. Like AI has been around, since 1956, essentially. But when it when it reached, the mass, population and so forth, and we started utilizing it, November of 2022, everybody is geeked on the innovation aspect, but regulation always lags behind. And that's, where I found, gaps, and
Hmm.
why bringing accessibility and cybersecurity together within AI governance was essential because, like one of the workarounds that Kate mentioned earlier with the staff, if you're implementing these systems, they're supposed to, automate, innovate, and create. But we're lagging in the parts that build guardrails, that protect, both the user, as well as the organization and entity that's utilizing it. If those are lagging, then we're going to crash. And at the crux of that, the people that fall through the cracks are the citizens. And so that's why, conversations like these are essential, but people like Kate that can bring in the lens of accessibility through her experience with the population, as well as her technical, prowess in AI is core. And we need those people with those, those skills on both sides. So.
Yeah, you mentioned two very valid points, and just even think about it since the 1950s, it's been around, but look how much farther we have to go from there.
Mhm.
Um, Mayor Proctor, I would say, pivoting over to you, as you know that cities are introducing AI to the public services, where do you think or where do you see most of the responsibility sitting when it comes to making sure your residents are not unintentionally excluded?
Well, Candice, that's a really great question. And obviously, I believe that the responsibility of it lies squarely with leadership, right? Technology teams, our vendors, they bring the expertise, but really accountability stays with us as your elected leadership, especially because we're responsible for outcomes, right? We're
Hmm.
policymakers. We're the people that make sure that our residents have the best quality of life. And especially for our residents who may not have the loudest voices, right? So we have
Mm,
that we're understanding that and where the gaps as Kate was talking about with the gaps, right? Understanding where those are surfacing in our community. And that means being very intentional even before a system goes live, right?
yes.
Especially before the system goes live, and not reacting to
Mhm.
something after we've launched something. So it definitely lies with us.
Can I add to that really quickly?
Please.
Here at the city, so last October, mayor and council motioned for us to have a citizen commission board that reviews our more higher risk cases for technology. So I'm working on with all of the wards to nominate somebody, but it is to provide that community lens. So I will be presenting what these higher use cases are, and then these community members can kind of help surface any type of issues that they might be thinking about or see that they're thinking from a community lens, we're thinking from an IT lens. There's all of these different perspectives. And so I think it's one way to bring the community in before it even gets deployed, and then
Mm.
we can make adjustments. And I'm really excited about that additional governance layer.
Mm.
Absolutely. Kate brought up a good point. And I want to add something because something she said made me think about what we've done in DeSoto. And that is bringing the community in on the front end. One of the things that we did, and Tiffany was a part of this event, we hosted an interest meeting. And we called all of our community members out, and they really gave us an eye opener in terms of like things that we never would have even been considering as a city. Oftentimes, if it's not your lived experience, sometimes
Mm.
you'll negate how even some things that seem smaller and significant or things we take for granted that we're able to do in our daily lives, how our residents really need that support. And so it was very eye-opening to be able to have that interest meeting. But again, I always say nothing about us without us. And so we didn't want to do anything in terms of launching a commission, because a lot of times, and I'm going to say this because I'm in that world, a lot of times as elected officials, we miss the mark when launching certain things becomes more performative than it is actually birthed from a place of actual interest in terms of understanding what the real needs are. Because what the interest, what the real needs are in one city varies very differently than what our needs are in our community. And so we had to make sure we had their voices at the table as we were crafting our commission to understand what are the real immediate needs of the residents in our community.
I like that. You said two things, nothing about us without us. That is literally a t-shirt above and beyond. But also, I like how you guys kind of made the concept of, both of you guys made a valid point of bridging the gap. But Mayor Proctor, I would say from a leadership standpoint, what makes something like DeSoto Commission for the persons with disabilities effective in shaping how the city approaches accessibility?
Sure. I think kind of going back to what I said before, right? We want to understand um and have people's lived experiences in our minds and with us as we start making decisions and as we start crafting it. Because again, it's not performative, it's not going to be symbolic. We want it to be structural in the way that we just do business, period, right? I think that the commission brings a perspective that we wouldn't have otherwise had, so that we're not making assumptions about what people need, but we're actually informed, from the people in terms of what they need. And I think that when you get there, when you do that, that's where you make better policy and better systems in your city overall. And again, make it structural and just a part of your values, a part of the way that you do business day to day, versus it is something in and separate of itself.
You just mentioned policies as well, and I would think, given that there are probably thousands that come across your desk for the most part, but how do you personally evaluate whether a system is truly serving for the entire community, especially for those who are usually left out or they're not part of those technology decisions?
Sure. One of the things I'll say for me in my decision-making process as an elected official, it's incumbent upon us to look at who's actually using what we do have and who's not using it, right? Because again, we talk about gaps. I think the gaps are what tells the deeper story. I also look at the feedback from residents. It sounds very simplistic, but it's so important that we create opportunities and spaces for our residents to really share their feedback. And sometimes that feedback can be very difficult to hear in terms of where the gaps are or where we may be missing the mark as a city in terms of the way that we serve our residents. And so, but oftentimes when we look at who's been overlooked, we've got to create things that work for them, right? Because if it works for them, then it can work for everybody. And so finally, I look at where there may be unintended barriers like language access, even digital literacy, or again, ability access. Because again, if it only works for those people that have the resources already or that are the most connected, then it's not successful at all. And so we've got to look again at making sure that it's serving everybody.
Absolutely. Tiff, did you have some input from obviously you being a part of the conversation? Have you seen some barriers lifted since then?
In DeSoto, and I have worked with Mayor Proctor over the last couple of years. She provided the resource fair that we had right at the tail end of the pandemic, where from education to employment, we just created an opportunity for everybody, people with disabilities as well as their caregivers, to get informed and how to just make life a little bit easier. And so, we've done that over the years. She has always provided not just a seat at the table. And I love using this because Beck, who's with the Black Girls Hack Foundation, she brought a seat at the table as well as another one for other people to join in. And so it's not that it's just the citizens of DeSoto, but she's opening the doors with our sister cities to come in and have a seat and a voice. And so in that case, we need to see more of that. South of 30 here in Dallas Fort Worth, I believe we are the only one that has a commission for persons with disabilities. And I'm hoping that even though we're the first, we're not the last. And especially like right now, we're going through some changes in the city from an economic standpoint, what that dynamic looks like. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies coming in. We have data centers being built in the south of us. And even with our school systems, we're having R1 universities pop up. University of North Texas, just 45 minutes north of us, just got that designation. SMU just received that designation last year. But the gap that we're seeing in skill set as well as employment is with Black and Brown communities. And so, we're capable, we have the people, but the infrastructure around that and making sure that, our groups are not being left behind. It's not a matter of access, but who's willing to just reach out. And that's where, I'm hoping this conversation is with our cities, pipelines between our high schools and to, whether they want to go to community college and just, get certified, which is completely fine. Or if you want to go to a 4-year university, we have to figure out how to bring in the voices to the table and where those gaps might occur in the future where, like I said, it might be skills. And if it's skills, then it's going to turn into financial. And if it's financial, then, we're not bringing money in, it's going out. And then we're going to see, infrastructure kind of fall, by the wayside. And that's where the concern for me is during this conversation that we're having with these two cities.
Absolutely. Seems to be an explosion of technology has always been here. That's not going to go away, but it seems like obviously Texas is the foreground for, like you mentioned, data centers, and there's just a whole entire boom of AI, and it's the new popular kid in town. A question for you both. If I were a city leader or a team that just walks away from this one particular session, what is one decision they should rethink immediately when it comes to AI in public services?
Mayor Proctor, would you like to take that first?
I do. I think for me, one of the things that immediately came to mind when you said that, I think when we think of AI and just technology in general, we think about efficiency, right? But we have to rethink prioritizing efficiency in and of itself, right? Because a system that's fast, but again, exclude people will cost us more in the long run, right? So a better question, right, is looking at efficiency is still good, but a better question is going to be whether the residents actually can use it. And I think even foremost, whether the residents can actually trust it and benefit from it, right? That's going to be one of those things because introducing some of these things into our community can be challenging because again, people may not be as trusting of technology. Some people have their thoughts about AI. And so introducing something in fast or trying to get it and the efficiency of it all can be one thing. But again, I definitely think that the better question is whether our residents can actually use it, benefit from it, and whether they can trust it.
Gotcha on that one. Kate, did you have some insights to kind of provide for that as well?
To piggyback off of that, because I absolutely agree. When I'm speaking with a lot of vendors, that's what they lead with is efficiency and how much more our employees are going to do. And so I think this is a two-sided question. One, those efficiency gains just mean our employees are being asked to do more, right? So taking care of our employees so that they can take care of the residents that we serve. That's one thing that I would love for leaders to walk away with and be thinking about, because it's not just gain efficiency. And then now my work week is more challenging tasks, more angry customers, and what does that work look like for work-life balance? So that's one thing I want to address just as a human. And then I think as Mayor Proctor was mentioning, like just instead of thinking about efficiency, let's start with risk. Like, what are those risks? Like, who is this going to fail first? Like, let's have that conversation so that we look at it from a different lens of let's address those needs first, and then all of a sudden we can look at those efficiency gains.
I love that, Kate.
I love that too. It's like break it so therefore you can make it the best, strongest concept above and beyond. So that definitely works in that regards. I kind of want to switch gears for just a second and kind of talk about some other things that are kind of primary right now. I'll say earlier this year, the City of DeSoto formally established an inaugural commission for the people with disabilities through the city ordinance. The commission then serves as the advocacy capacity for the mayor, city councils, the city departments, and just with the clear focus of advancing accessibility through policies, advocacies, and just a strategic partnership overall. Its structure just reflects the shift towards embedding accessibility into decision making, whether it be treated as an afterthought or just responsibilities to include advising on employment, education, transportation, and just independent living for residents overall, as it kind of permits. At the same time, I would say the city of Tucson, Arizona, has been recognized for its continued commitment of the ADA compliance through the structured accessibility program, the enforcement of those practices. The city actively evaluates the services, the facilities, and the policies and the equal access. So it just supports the formal complaint procedures and the ongoing systems while those assessments are tried by the ADA standard. My question for, I would say, both of you, if you will, or maybe starting with Mayor Proctor, with those notions being in place, what would you say looking forward for the DeSoto Commission for any persons with the disabilities, or even in Tucson, the ADA recognition? What does the signal about the cities are getting right today? Like, what are they doing right and well?
I think for us, in terms of what I feel like this signals that we're getting right in terms of direction, right? That cities are moving in. I think that it means that we're realizing that as a city that accessibility cannot just be some one-time initiative, right? It has to be the standard that we operate with as a city. Because we're shifting as a city from being very reactive when things arise to being very intentional about the way that we serve our residents from the very beginning. And I think that that creates a stronger system. I think that it also signals that we are really listening to the real needs of our residents. You read quite a few things in terms of what our commission is going to be focusing on, and we didn't approach those focuses haphazardly. Again, I think we can do things from a performative standpoint, but that's not what we wanted to do in DeSoto. We wanted to actually take time to hear from residents, to hear from those subject matter experts, to hear from those caregivers, to hear from those individuals, to hear from our senior citizens. A lot of times we don't realize that they fall into that category oftentimes as well. And so hearing their voices in terms of what their real needs are was very important to see where can we focus, because you can only put your energy in so many places at one time. So what is that actual highest need that the commission needs to focus on, and create a work plan from there. And then as we continue to grow it, then we may add on other things to see how can we service other needs. But it was very important to us that we not be reactive in our community, but that we create intentionality from the very beginning.
I love proactiveness in that regard. Kate, what about you? What about the Tucson's ADA recognitions and their concepts of what they're doing right?
Shout out to one of our teams. We won an award, so super excited about that. I have a teammate actually in the audience, Vladimir Burke. So I just want to give you a huge shout out for the work that you do behind the scenes to make this a reality. There is a push for all of our websites and our forms to be ADA compliant. We have hosted internally ADA training on like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, and so I think this is a signal of us trying to get it right, working in that direction of it, not just being compliance, but like integrated into our process. And the last two PowerPoint decks I created, I went through and did the accessibility checker and then named all of the items and added all of the metadata so that if somebody was using a screen reader, they would be able to follow along. And so it's taking that extra step because I want to be welcoming and inviting and make sure that the work that we're putting out there at the city is inclusive. And so that no matter who you are or where you're at, that you'll be able to access the services that you need.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Tiff. Do you have some perspective? I want to get your input as well.
I do. And I want to make, oh, I think I have some.
Got a little feedback. There you go. Try again.
Are we good?
Yeah.
There we go. One thing I want to let everybody know that might not be familiar, you can never be 100% accessible. Just like, you can't prevent all of the attacks for cybersecurity. It's not a matter of, if it happened, it's when. And so with accessibility, you try to reach and throw a wide, net to catch everything, knowing that you're probably going to have to adapt. Me being blind at 27 is not the same experience as somebody that was blind from birth, and how we maneuver and work and go about our daily lives and orientation and mobility around the city is going to be completely separate. So I think having those diverse perspectives, both Kate and Mayor Proctor mentioned getting, data, if you will, from their internal staff, from their citizens, from their leadership. And I think that's really important. I would love to see a signal, if you will. I would love to see that reflected on a federal level. Right now, with the census, this is how we get our data for our cities and what to build as far as schools, stores, and so forth, and what funds are allocated to these cities. But when there's some fear, going back to what Mayor Proctor said about people of color with the government providing our information, all in all, to what is going on inside our homes. On the census right now, even it does not do a deep dive into disabilities that might be in a household. And with government assistance or government aid, if you reach upon a certain threshold, you can have those, that assistance removed, specifically with financial. So if I make above, let's say, $2,000 in income, my government assistance is removed. And so if I'm in a household and there's other, 4 other tax-paying adults, I'm scared of giving that data and information that would be essential for our cities to know, because I might be at risk of losing that income because there are other, household income is increased by whoever else is in that household. So we have to close that gap. And I think a signal to see, which we know the frustrations and what we're dealing with right now, as far as our political climate goes. But I think the signal for me is when we can have more robust data that is inclusive of all persons, abilities, ethnicities, and so forth, that's represented, that we can actually use as we're incorporating these AI systems into the city.
That's actually valid. Tiffany actually touched on something. I kind of want to get Kate's and Mayor Proctor's response on that one. Given that you do have a lot of people who are sometimes elderly or they're stuck in their ways and they have pushback from learning new technology such as AI, or they just don't trust it because the government's trying to get their information. How do you guys overcome those objectives, or how are you kind of getting people to buy in? Like, this is the new way, and we're including you in this new perspective to ensure that you have the capability to be better.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'll go first. I think you have to really meet people where they are and understand why there may be a level of distrust there. When when you're dealing with certain populations. And one of the things that we try to do in the City of DeSoto, we have a very thriving senior center. So I'll stick with kind of our elderly. We have a very thriving senior center. And so we do different events and activities almost weekly. And we have our big senior symposium that's actually coming up. That's coming up next week, where we have vendors of all sorts, whether that's technology or this or the like, to where they are coming and they're doing classes, or they're doing different things to introduce them to technology slowly, not all at once. And we found that really helped. That's very helpful a lot. And bringing different vendors out there to show them the different types of technology, whether it's cell phones, those types of things that our residents can use to help them get acclimated and to help them build that level of trust. But you have to give them time and ease them into it, and again, meet them where they are, but present several opportunities, which is what we like to do, to make sure that they have access to it and they are getting that information from people that they actually do know and trust.
Everything's done better with community. What about you, Kate? Have you seen pushback in that regard, in those areas, and how are you guys overcoming those adversities?
I agree that if you have somebody that looks like you teaching you, you're just more receptive. I would say that it's not just elderly. I would say that people get stuck in their ways and in their habits, and they're like, this is the way I've always done things and I don't want to change things. So it is a barrier across generations, and I think it is is tapping into what those frustrations are to get somebody to like want to learn something new. Like a lot of people are not up for change and they're challenged by it. And so if you're frustrated by something, an easy way in is like, hey, this solution can help you overcome that frustration or that static moment you're having. And so that's what I look for, are those opportunities. Like, look, you hate this about your job. Let me show you like a little trick that will make it better. Or, there's a lot of wearables now that elderly or those individuals with accessibility needs that let me show you this new technology that might help overcome this thing in your life. And so if there's an opportunity to just help you have a better life, most people are up for that.
All things are challenging until you can benefit from it. I always learned
Mm-hmm.
that the hard way in that regard. Even with the notions, you guys made up some valid points, but what would you say for a collaboration standpoint when it comes to the technical teams and then probably city leadership? What do they need to do to ensure that they're working to succeed long term?
One of my favorite sayings, and if you've been around me any amount of time, you probably heard me say it over and over again because I truly believe it. And that is progress moves at the speed of relationships, right? And so collaboration has to be ongoing. The relationships have to be continuously being fostered, being built, and being integrated into what you're trying to do. It's not just a thing you do, right? You don't do an RFP and they come in and implement something and you hand it off to somebody, right? It's got to be a continuous dialogue amongst the technical teams, our IT, our leadership, and obviously in the community. And there's got to be those what I like to call feedback loops, right? To learn and improve it over time so that you're continuously getting better. You're seeing where the bottlenecks may be. You're seeing where the gaps are in what you're implementing, because you're not rarely does everything ever go right in the beginning. There are going to be those challenges with rolling things out. But again, if you have that continuous feedback from all people in there, I think that you can learn from it and grow from it, and you can make the best system over time.
Absolutely.
I love that. I,
Tiffany.
you know, I was in RFP meetings all morning long, so you're speaking near and dear to my heart. From my perspective here at the city, I think shared accountability. So I sit in IT, and we're implementing solutions that impact other departments, and so it can't just be what IT wants, right? Like we need to be talking to the water department or the police department or the permitting department, and
So good.
shared accountability. And not just that, but I want to hear from those that are on the front line. Like we're implementing a solution that's going to directly impact that person that answers the phone or serves our community. And if I'm just talking to leadership, like I think I'm going to miss the mark. And so it is looking at shared accountability from all levels within the organization, as well as externally getting that buy-in. And so yeah, I just want alignment on all of those pages.
As you should. Tiffany, you chuckled a little bit earlier. Did you have anything you want to?
Understanding that things will break, but you prepare for the worst, and pray for the best. It's just with AI, you have to keep the human in the loop. And I know, we're starting these conversations. You're starting to hear it a little bit more, especially with agentic, AI, with these automated, systems working and making sure. But I would like to take that a little bit further and just saying having human at the source, starting with the human, having humans throughout the process, because at the end, that's who we're impacting is the user. And just what I'm hearing from both Kate and Mayor Proctor is just their great ability to communicate and do so effectively, not just with their residents, their leadership, but then also the departments in between. Kate brought up the PD department. AI is being implemented there through drones. When a drone arrives, and how will it decipher what's how to handle a mental situation. Bringing in that human. With DeSoto, we have the care team as they intervene with sensitive cases, with people that might have, a mental disability, cognitive disability, to intervene. We need those systems in place throughout. with any department that we're dealing with. And so I really appreciate these two leaders talking about how they are effectively communicating throughout, how they're bringing the residents, their lived experiences in, and how they're responding to that, whether through, implementation of AI or with, the board of commissions, in which I will say that it has not been performative. I have been on two boards with the City of DeSoto, the Citizens Police Advisory Council that came about right after George Floyd. And so meeting on a consistent basis with our police department about the concerns of our citizens, our neighborhoods, and them listening, especially when it pertains to policy. Because if you're going to implement an AI system, they're going to work best off of what you put in place, those policies. You need structured systems, and you need an outline, and you need policies in place for that, whatever, AI system that you're using to be effective. So if that's not put in place and that data is accurate or as robust as can be, then it renders the system ineffective. And so just kudos. I just want to celebrate these two leaders and what they're doing.
Absolutely. I will say one more thing and one more question, given that you guys both, you ladies both touched on this topic. Where do you see the greatest risk if accessibility and accountability is not built into these systems from the beginning? Kate was like, let me get this.
My PhD work is all about this because this is in AI and healthcare in bias. AI, all it will do is amplify what already exists, right? And so if we are seeing things that we already know are skewed, we're just going to amplify that. And at the city, we provide services for the city, for citizens. And so I want to make sure that we are not hindering anybody from gaining access to the things that they deserve and they need. And so, yeah, I want accountability now, not later. And I just want to make sure that we do this in a transparent, accountable, trustworthy way, so that if residents have questions, they can ask them and we can adequately provide answers. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'll come to Mayor Proctor, what are your thoughts on?
I think Kate took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, she hit the nail on the head. AI amplifies what it's built on, right? I think one of the, and obviously we know AI has been around for a while, but I think in the recent years, everybody's gotten very familiar with ChatGPT, and we know that the success of the output relies on the prompt or what you're putting in, right? The better the prompts are, the better the outputs that you're going to get. And so we have to realize that oftentimes if the inputs and the prompts that we're giving things are not what they need to be, I think the greatest risk is scaling inequity faster than we can actually solve it, right? So we've got to make sure that we're making sure that we're putting the right things in terms of, again, hearing from the people, bringing everybody on board, and making sure that we're communicating with everybody in the organization to make sure that those gaps don't become harder to fix over time because we're not putting the right things in to get the right things out.
Absolutely, in that regard. You ladies gave phenomenal insights and kind of gave us a whole entire perspective to think about when it came to AI, accessibility, and just civic innovation altogether. So if I could probably wrap it up in a bow and kind of give it back and present it, the three notions or concepts that I came back with was one, be sure to meet people where they are when it comes to their accessibility and their journey of learning thereafter. Making sure that you're getting the public buy-in, so therefore they understand what it is that you guys are trying to do to help them to be accessible. And third but not least, make sure there's accountability. Make sure that people are aware and if things aren't working right, how can we change it? How can we evolve? How can we make the concept to bridge the gap of what's going on from what possibly didn't get us there is not going to get us here now. So it's kind of getting those two concepts. Do you guys agree, or do you have some other things you want to add into those?
I would apply all of those internally as well as externally. So internally for employees as well as externally. Like I created an AI feedback form so that people can report, like if they're using a product and it's hallucinating, let us know, because maybe we need to negotiate with the vendor. Maybe we need to maybe we need a discount on that product. Maybe this isn't the product for us. And so this has happened in real time. We have environmental services. It captures whether the drivers are wearing seatbelts, and it's flagging drivers for not wearing their seatbelts. Well, the AIs can't detect the seatbelt from the reflective vest. Now, if I have a supervisor that then writes up an employee for not wearing their seatbelt, I then am creating this like really poor feedback loop where an employee might get penalized when they're doing their job correctly. And so it's creating that accountability both internally as well as externally that I think is really important.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, in that concept. We do have a capability for the audience to participate and kind of just circle back on the concept of what we want to know. What do you believe is the most important principle where city governments should follow when adapting any artificial intelligence for the public services? We want to know what you guys think on that, and what do you guys have some feedback on? See if I can see what's in the chat and read out a couple of things before we kind of close out here.
And
Let's
also, while Candice is reading those, we also have what we call at VisioTech the Accessible AI Quotient Framework. And what we're hoping to do with this is to make sure that all AI systems are made accessible from design, development, and deployment. The best way we can do that is with evidence-based research. And so we are using these base camps in order to gain that data, go back, work with our teams, work with other organizations, and actually have them test out this framework so that we can revamp and provide a second version of this in order to move forward from that data. We did not get that from the first time. And so that's what we're doing here. And so if I can have Gwen drop the link to that, we would love if you could visit us at visiotech.co/AAIQ. That framework is free and open to the public, and to utilize it and to provide feedback to us on what can be done better in order to make that more comprehensive and cohesive for what we need, whether it's our government in our cities, education, whether it's in nonprofits and so forth. So we would really love your feedback there.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, Tiffany, there's some comments that I think we should read out loud. We have Minister Jazz, and we have some good information here where trust is so important because it works, but they don't want to go near it because it won't get the opportunity to work at all. Trust is what's been left out over the conversation. So we want to make sure that the infrastructure of AI is what helps us build that trust. And the older models are taking have limited tokens. They have gaps that are built out loud. So once people have an understanding of what is in the forefront, they are able to give that information out twice as hard, and then they're able to understand. So education is definitely optimal, but it isn't always optional for different people. Also, we had some people say that they're the mayor of Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin, and they also happen to be totally blind, but the chat had to give some insights in that regard as well. So there's some people who really got some things to say and want to always kind of understand, like, different cities are building those future concepts, and they want to make sure the residents understand what it is to give out data, to have their voice to be heard, to identify it one day at a time, and not just have those patches to be ignored or heard. So people are definitely hearing your responses and giving their insights. So thank you guys for participating and giving us that feedback in that regard.
Yeah. And did anybody have any questions that you would like to ask Kate or Mayor Proctor?
Can I comment on the tokens, the older models and limited tokens? So, we have 5,000 employees here, and we can't afford an enterprise license for these traditional models that we've been using, Claude, ChatGPT, for everybody. And so even with a paid version, people are running out of tokens. They're hitting consumption. I honestly will argue that it's good for us to hit consumption and have a timeout. Like, we need to take a break. I think that we can become reliant on the output and yes. And so I love when employees actually hit consumption and they have to take a break, because it forces you to switch your brain, do something else, and then you can go back and when you regain some tokens. So yes, there's the pros and cons to that, and I'm seeing it in real time, and I think it's especially with high risk use cases, when you need that human in the loop, you want to have a ebb and flow of I'm using the model, I'm not using the model, so that your brain doesn't just become reliant and you become a rubber stamp. So to that, And then trust, absolutely. Trust it's earned, right? Like we have a public facing website with our police because they're the highest risk use cases usually, showing how we're utilizing that technology. And it is really important for our mayor and council here to build that trust, maintain that trust, and to continue to earn it from our residents. So I just wanted to touch on those 2 points.
Awesome. There's another comment that I want to touch base on, that systematically working to eliminate barriers and accessibility in common sense, cost-effective manners. That's a good one in that regard.
Absolutely. It's a win-win for everybody, because if we're blessed and lucky enough to live into old age, like we need our services to work for us, right? Like I need my sidewalks and all of the things that come with aging. Like this is a win-win for all of us, and so it's a good investment in just to humanity.
Absolutely. I did want to mention again that link has been dropped inside of the chat, so definitely take advantage of that and see where that derives from, so you can kind of get more insights on anything that comes with AI and anything comes with cybersecurity and accessibility, marrying the two concepts at that website of visiotech.co. Any other closing remarks before we conclude today's session?
I think this is the right way to go, like to be thinking about accessibility at the forefront of innovation, to have inclusive conversations, both internally and externally, and inviting people that wouldn't necessarily be at the table so that they can share their perspective. And I am honored to be with all of you amazing women on this stage and having this conversation, because I know that we'll be speaking for those that aren't usually in the room. And so thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Mayor Proctor, did you have any other thoughts or remarks before we conclude today?
Yeah, definitely just honored and loved our conversation today. And it even has me, my wheels turning again with some things again that we can approach in terms of our approach with the way that we're doing things in DeSoto. So again, definitely feel this is a necessary conversation, and I look forward to continuing it in the future.
Absolutely. Ladies, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I thank you for the hard work that you're doing. I thank you for your dedication, your perseverance, and I thank you for at least being here today. So therefore we can have the conversation to help bridge the gap as time goes on. And just hearing your intellectual insights kind of has us all thinking, what can we do to do more? And how can we be advocates to make sure our cities are better along the course of time? A special thank you to Tiffany for just bringing the conversation to the forefront. So letting us know that we definitely have a lot more work to do, but we know for a fact we have strong soldiers who are in the battlefield, who are fighting for a greater tomorrow for those who have disabilities and even those who just want to learn more about technology as a whole. So thank you so much for giving us the platform to have that discussion today. And that's all that I have for you. Again, make sure you please go to those websites so you can get the information, and definitely fill out surveys. Anything that you guys want to give us feedback and some insights on what was today's topic of discussion. Maybe what do you want to know more in the future? And we can kind of have those discussions at hand. So again, I do appreciate your time, and thank you again. I hope you have a blessed day in that regard.
Hey, did you need anything before I drop the call?
No, I was just going to answer this question in the chat about how do you encourage city leaders to engage with people with disabilities beyond public community meetings.
Perfect. The recording is still going, so if you want to answer live, you can. Or if you want to put it in the chat, you can do it. Either one.
You know, the ward offices are great resources, and those communities are very active. And so I think beyond just those public community meetings that are, standardized, those impromptu opportunities to meet with people and share your experience and what you need from us as a city to support you is a great way to get involved.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.